What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stucky.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM. Brendan Glasheen, joined by Sean Zerillo and Charlie DiSturco, diving into Monday, August 12th. Monday's slate features 11 games. We are recording Sunday evening to do something a little different because, as we've acknowledged, since these switches to the night before records, there's not a whole lot of data out there as it pertains to a lot of things, pitching and lineups, obviously. And then, for example, in the Action app, as it pertains to sides and totals and where the money's coming in. So we're going to do something a little different. We're going to work in an awards update and a futures update at the end of the podcast. So we'll still do underdogs and some final single bets, single game bets, and then we'll do some awards and futures looks from Charlie and Sean. And I think just overall some good fodder, some good discussion as we kind of hit this stretch run. But first and foremost, we will do best bets. Sean, what comes to mind for Monday's slate? What do you got?
Minnesota Twins, specifically for the first 5 innings, would be my best bet because I projected that at minus 190, but I will bet them for both the first 5 innings and the full game. Projected those at minus 190 and minus 170 respectively. So price targets of minus 175 for the first 5 innings and minus 155 for the full game. We've discussed at length the Royals' home road splits on the season on this podcast. They are 16th in WRC plus on the season overall, but 13th at home and 24th on the road. 108 WRC plus at home, so 8% above league average. 24th on the road, 88 WRC plus, 12% below league average. So 12% below versus 8% above. Massive difference, obviously. The Bobby Witt splits, super notable amongst that. Bobby Witt hitting like 400 at home and 270 on the road. Strikeout rate drastically different. And that is the biggest difference in their home road splits, is mostly the strikeout minus walk rate, the strikeout rate. They're the most difficult team to strike out at home. They fall to 5th on the road. It's pushed closer as the season's gone along. You can credit them for striking out less on the road of late. But overall, the splits are drastically different. And I think that the walk rate is the most notable because they do not walk on the road. 29th in walk rate, closer to league average at home. 13.6% strikeout minus walk rate on the road, 8.9% at home. So drastic difference, 5%. Now, that's just the splits in the offense, and I favor Minnesota offensively, but I also give them a big pitching advantage here, too, not only in the starting pitching matchup, but also in the bullpen. We can start with the bullpen. So on the season, Minnesota top 10 bullpen, 8th, 9th. Royals bottom 5, pretty clearly. 8th versus 26th in expected FIP, 8th versus 29th in strikeout minus walk rate. Royals made some additions at the deadline. I think they pulled a little bit closer. But you look at those same two categories since the deadline. 7th versus 21st in expected FIP. 6th versus 25th in strikeout minus walk rate. I still think the Royals are a bottom 10 bullpen, a bottom 8 bullpen at best. I think the Twins are pretty comfortably a top 8 bullpen or a top 7 bullpen. Now, you also have 2 starting pitchers who have had drastically different seasons in terms of luck. Brady Singer, a 3 ERA, 3.03, but a 4.56 expected ERA. A 94 pitching plus rating, so below average, below 100, and also a 4.47 bot ERA. So all indicators show Brady Singer is about a 4-5 type pitcher, a number 4 starter, where for Pablo Lopez, he has a 4.74 ERA, but a 3.5 expected ERA, a 104 pitching plus rating, well above average, and a 3.2 bot ERA. So everything tells me Pablo Lopez still comfortably a number 2 starter. Brady Singer has fallen closer to that number 4 starter level. And even though Brady Singer has the better ERA, by 1.7 runs, Pablo Lopez is the significantly better pitcher, and I would project him to have that much of an advantage. Not 1.7 runs, but about a full run, a run and a quarter differential between these two starters. Lopez on the season, not stranding guys as much as he typically does. His strand rate down 5%. He's also allowing home runs more than he typically does. His home run to fly ball rate is up. His overall home run rate is up. So, and Brady Singer, the opposite being true, just stranding guys at 80%, typically in his career, 72%, and BABIP down about 25 points over his career average too. So, as I've said throughout this matchup, pitching advantage for Minnesota, give them the better lineup. The Royals offense still has been worse on the road than it has been at home. And then lastly, I made this total about 8.3. The wind is blowing out. It should be 80 degrees at first pitch. I mentioned the home run issue with Lopez. That is still present, even though I do think he's better than he's pitched to date. But it saves us a little bit betting the over here in addition to the Twins' money lines. But the Twins' first 5 money line up to about minus 175. Full game money line to minus 155. And then the over 7.5, I'd take up to 8 at even money or 7.5 at minus 120.
All right. And Charlie, you're going to co-sign with Sean here on the Twins.
Yeah, I had everything written down to just pick up one thing that Sean didn't say to throw out there, and I really couldn't because he literally just said everything that I would have said. Yeah, we talked about this last week, right, Brendan? Like, we talked about this when he played the Boston Red Sox. The over was like the way that I looked. Don't hate the Twins team total as well. Probably look toward that as well. Just I am looking to fade Brady Singer as much as I can down the stretch here. It's only a matter of time before it all comes crashing down, and it started to come against Boston and there were a lot of moments where Boston stranded some guys in big situations before the over just eventually, the floodgates opened and so many runs poured in. But yeah, looking toward the Twins in the first 5, buying the regression for negative for Singer, positive for Lopez, and hoping the Twins get it done.
There were a lot of base runners in that game that you were referencing the last time he was out there, Brady Singer.
Yep.
4 runs on 10 hits and 5 2/3. So it probably should have been more than 4, right?
Yeah, well, there's second and third or bases loaded when Devers was up and he struck out, and then Long struck out right after in that first inning.
Yeah.
Like right away, they had the chance.
Okay, the Twins. I feel like the Twins, if we put this podcast into one of those data machines, the Twins being featured in the best bet segment is the team that always comes up. So all the time. And not just you.
They did
Everybody.
lose Joe Ryan last week, and we discussed some teams from a futures perspective recently, and I mentioned that I'm high on the Twins without Joe Ryan. I think that takes a lot of punch out of their postseason chances because having Lopez, who I think is underperformed, having Joe Ryan, who's gone up a level this season, I think that was a very formidable 1-2 punch to throw out there against anybody. Now, going up with Lopez, Bailey Ober gets a little more sketchy. So, yeah, I think that Joe Ryan injury could be massive for Minnesota.
Zebby Matthews season.
David Festa's been great. Festa's pitched really well. I like Simeon Woods Richardson. I think Joe Ryan was a tier above those guys, so it sort of lowers the ceiling for this team a little bit.
But Ryan's not done for the year, though. Or do you think so?
Not done for the year, but the prognosis didn't sound great, and I didn't get the indication that he'll necessarily be 100% even if he comes back.
Okay.
Yeah, they said weeks to months.
Yeah, it didn't sound positive.
Yeah. I mean, you know how that goes too. They stash a guy on the 15-day IL, and then it just gets elongated, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And pitchers never beat their timeline either. Like, what pitcher has ever come back sooner than expected? Sometimes hitters do. They rush their timeline a little bit, and even when those guys do, typically they don't hit as well as they normally do before an injury because they're still dealing with the injury. But pitchers never beat their timeline. They're always get delayed or backed up. They still have to throw, get in shape even after that. So, it's like he's weeks to months from throwing again, let alone like actually proving that he's healthy.
Okay. Something to keep an eye on for the Twins. Let's go to underdogs. Again, we're not doing Fade the Public. We're going to do awards, futures, bonus segment on this weekend recap, sort of Monday preview. So what do we have for an underdog tomorrow, Sean?
Yeah, the only 2 games I bet thus far. So the Twins, as I mentioned, those bets against the Royals, and then the Texas Rangers up in Boston against the Red Sox. I'm on Texas, and I'm also on the under in this matchup. Off the jump, want to point out like why it's important to have access to so many sports books, have multiple accounts, be able to price shop. Different books have the first 5 line for Texas here priced at plus 128 and plus 100 respectively. And you may say, oh, that's an outlier, maybe a one-off, maybe they put a mistake lineup. It's at multiple books. It's the same supplier of odds for those multiple books. And pretty often their first 5 lines are like 20 cents off market from everybody else. And you can bet favorites, you can bet underdogs and get a way better price than everybody else. But if you start winning a few bets, your account probably will be limited. So find your way to make those accounts, find your friends to making those accounts, and try not to get those accounts limited, because you can get great odds on first 5 lines. But yeah, I just shop around as always. So depending on where the price you get or where the price range is, I would like Texas in the first 5 innings, but I certainly like them for the full game. I made the first 5 line plus 111. I made the first full game line plus 107. So about plus 121 or better for the first 5 innings. Unlikely that you'll get that. But plus 115 or better for the full game would be a bet for me as well. And we're going to get into the pitching matchup and, why I like Texas a little bit. Note, though, Brian Bayo coming off of paternity leave here. Did he sleep? Like, how did his past 3 days go? So that's just like something I think about that is probably not factored into the line. But when you think about a guy like Brian Bayo, who's very Jekyll and Hyde, who has some great performances, but also some horrible performances, and in the aggregate, he's been pretty bad this season.
Oh, Sean, it's a rock slide. If once one thing goes wrong, it turns into a domino effect with that guy.
And now imagine, you're a little bit grumpy. You haven't slept because you just had a baby the other day, or your wife just had a baby, but you've been, up and down. Like, it's been a rough few days. I'm sure it hasn't been smooth sailing. He's not getting his full allotment of sleep. So yeah, just like something to think about on top of the fact that I like Texas here. Brian Bayo had a rough few days and probably a sleepless few days. So going back to Bayo, 5.15 ERA, but a 4.75 expected ERA. He's deserved it. Pitch modeling metrics like him. They see the arsenal. They see the stuff. There's a lot of potential there. 3.6 body ERA, 104 pitching plus. But as you said, Brendan, he unravels. And it seems to be, I don't know if it's like I don't watch him consistently enough to tell you whether it's 1 inning or 2 innings per start where it falls apart, because there are plenty of guys like that who unravel for 2 innings per start. And whether you cash in the runs in those innings determines how their nights go. And the other innings, they tend to be a little bit more smooth sailing. I feel like Bayo, when he's in trouble, there's runners on every inning. But regardless, I think he is closer to the expected results he's put up this year, the expected results he's put up in the past. He remains a high upside guy. And if he ever breaks out, there's evidence to suggest that he was always going to, just like a Ryan Nelson. Ryan Nelson, who's pitching extremely well of late, who's finally getting the strikeouts of late, has pitch modeling metrics very comparable to Brian Bayo. Bayo just hasn't put it together yet. Nelson has. So keep an eye on Brian Bayo from an upside perspective. But right now, I think he's a number 4 or replacement level starter. Tyler Mahle, this is his second start off the IL. His stuff plus is down relative to last season, relative to pre-injury, but his velocity is the same as last year. So I actually feel pretty encouraged by that first start. Also showed really good command. And I think this Rangers offense, looking at their splits over the past 30 days, they're still a bottom 5 offense, but they were really hitting the ball in New York. They were hitting the ball in Toronto. I think they're finally getting a little bit healthier. Seager's been really hot at the plate. They got Josh Young back in their lineup healthy. This is the best their offense has probably been all year. And oh, by the way, they're the better defensive team in this matchup too. First in outs above average on the season, Texas. Boston's 27th. Defensive run saved pushes them closer together. They have an 8th and 15th respectively, but I do model them with a defensive advantage. It is one of those sneaky hidden advantages that probably not everybody's accounting for or looking at on the surface, but it does exist for me. And I think that's probably enough to negate Boston's likely bullpen edge. So better starting pitcher, pretty comparable lineups, better defense, giving away some bullpen. But yeah, I made this line, as I said, about plus 107. So anything plus 115 or better on Texas. And then it's only going to be 73 degrees tomorrow. We're starting to get a little bit into the cooler temperatures here in mid-late August. Everybody coming down from the 90s, high 90s, even over the past couple of weeks. Now a lot of temperatures across the country starting to get down into the 70s and the 80s. And especially at night, it gets cooler a little bit more quickly. So not as good of hitting weather as we have had in Boston in recent weeks, just 73 degrees at first pitch. So I made this total 9.2. I like the under 10, even the under 9.5 down to even money.
Okay. You can feel it. That's for sure. You can feel it tonight.
They're lovely nights though for walking around, pop
it's
open
great.
those windows when you sleep.
I'm not
It's perfect
complaining.
weather.
Yeah. Bayo did allow 2 runs in that bottom of the 5th inning. That was the same start that Singer had for Kansas City. It was the same. That was the matchup. And homer, single, double, walk, and then he was out. So it usually is like 1 inning. But the minute it's a big hit or a home run, it just kind of it unravels. So
Yeah, I'd like to see a study on that because I do feel like more. There's obviously certain pitchers, your Dakota Hudsons, who feel like they're in trouble every inning. But I feel like good pitchers, or the guys who I think have upside, more often than not, it just comes down to like 1 bad inning for them at every start. Noah Syndergaard was like that. Noah Syndergaard would cruise, and then he would just seemingly lose his command for an inning, and he'd walk the bases loaded. Ohtani did this a ton when Ohtani was pitching. And then whether they get out of that 1 inning where they're in trouble kind of determines how that night goes. Because if they let it keep going, they get blown up, they end up coming out of the start. But if they get through it, they just end up going right back to cruising for the rest of the start. So, yeah, I think it's just an interesting anecdote to keep an eye on, whatever. As guys come up, as you see new pitchers come to the big leagues, see sort of how their starts go. Are they constantly in trouble, or is it just 1 bad inning for them and they're trying to push through it?
all right, Charlie, you're Underdog, an above average pitching matchup in Tampa.
Yeah, heading out to the Rays where they're slight underdogs. This is where I haven't officially bet it yet, but this is my favorite underdog on the board so far. Framber Valdez, and Taj Bradley. I don't really see much difference between the two. Like Bradley's expected metrics, a 3.4 xFIP, a 80% strand rate. Framber a 3.3 xFIP, a 74% strand rate. You look at Bradley, he limits expected batting average, has an elite strikeout rate. His ultimate downfall is that he gives up, an 11% barrel rate. But the silver lining is, and you look at his recent games, he's allowed just 1 game with a home run in the last 7 starts. And usually, when Bradley was on the mound, it was always like, even honestly, similar to the conversation you guys were just having, it's usually 1 or 2 innings where he just gave up a couple runners, 1 big home run, and then all of a sudden his starts always looked way worse than they were. Framber, on the other hand, he has a bottom 3% of all pitchers in hard hit rate, right around 50%. But he's a huge ground ball pitcher, 60%. That usually gets him out of big moments. The timely double play, or if the base is loaded, they go home. He's below average in expected batting average, so Bradley holds the edge there as well. He's fine in the strikeout rate department, but I think this is a pitching matchup that's kind of a wash. And then you look at the offenses. Yes, Houston's won 5 in a row. Their offense looks a bit better of late, but over the last 30 days, still larger sample size. They're 18th in WRC plus against right-handed pitching. Flip that around, Tampa, as bad as they've been and they sold. And yes, it's like obviously hard to buy a team that was obviously selling, but they're 7th in WRC plus over the last 30 days against left-handed pitching. And the bullpen is, we were saying, is only a matter of time, even with trading away Adam and everyone else. And the Rays bullpen is number 2 in the last 30 days, according to xFIP. And Houston has had severe issues. They're down in the 25 range. So all of this to say, in a pitching matchup that I think is closer to a wash, the offense, based on their splits, I think it's closer to a wash as well. And the bullpen, I think, is also close to a wash, if not in favor of Tampa. I don't think the plus money number should be in front of Houston or Tampa at home here. So I'm happy to take that plus money with the Rays. I trust Bradley.
Okay. Keep an eye on the app for anything tomorrow on Monday from Zerillo, if he has anything, because as he mentioned, he's on 2 games right now, Twins and the Red Sox Rangers game under and the Rangers side. Charlie, you've got a couple looks before we dive into our awards futures update.
Yeah, so I'll be obviously writing the Monday, Wednesday, Friday hitters prop piece, just breaking down everything from weather to who's hot, who's not. And 2 of my props, at least my favorite prop of the day, is Machado, total bases against Marco Gonzalez. He's absolutely crushed left-handed pitching this season. You look at the numbers, he's been doing really well. Marco Gonzalez is a guy that you should always be fading. I don't know how he's still pitching right now. You look at the numbers, he's bottom 1% of all pitchers in expected ERA, expecting batting average, bottom 5% in strikeout rate, bottom 6% of all pitchers in barrel rate. He just played the San Diego Padres. His last time out went 4 2/3, 8 hits, 5 runs, a pair of home runs. Machado's tagged him before I like him to do the same thing again here. I'm debating between total bases and RBI. We record this on Sunday night for Monday, so props aren't really readily available, especially in this game, because I think Musgrove is returning for San Diego, so they're still figuring out.
It should be Joe.
So Joe's going to return. Props are not going to happen until at least the morning of. So I can't really know what the numbers are, but Machado is definitely my favorite guy to do damage in that one. You look at his numbers the last, 14, 30, even 30 days. He's absolutely crushing it in the month of August. So like him against a lefty here. And then William Contreras, I think over 1.5 hits, runs, RBI is where I'll end up going. Hard hit rate, fly ball rate, both on an upswing. He crushes southpaws, a 330 average and 850 OPS. And in the last 7 days at the plate, I mentioned the higher fly ball rate, the higher hard hit rate. He's had a 1.100 OPS with 5 of his 8 hits going for extra bases. Leads all healthy Brewers in WRC plus against left-handed pitching. Gets Kershaw. I don't know what to make of him. The numbers right around a 101 stuff plus, 100 location plus. He has a high fly ball rate and is not striking out batters right now. But again, such a limited sample size. The year prior, he struggled a bit with barrel rate. I would like to fade Kershaw as much as I can down the stretch here. I don't really think he's going to be a top arm for LA, and we've seen some cracks since he's returned. So I like Contreras here to do some damage as well in that middle of the Brewers lineup.
Yeah, the Pirates actually haven't announced the starter. Musgrove has been announced. Gonzalez has not been officially announced, so that's why you don't have props for that game yet. He's the only starter of the 22 starters tomorrow who's not been announced. So, of course, the one guy who you're looking to target is the one guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, if the Pirates were smart, they would not be starting him. So, maybe they're like, can we start anybody else? Who do we have? Because that is who I would fade if I can in any moment's time.
All right, very good. So there are your looks for tomorrow. We're going to do our awards segment now, and it kind of blends well because I know we've talked about Twins and we've talked Pirates, and that relates to Paul Skeens. Well, we'll start. We'll go right in order. We'll go NL Rookie of the Year, AL Rookie of the Year, and then NL Cy Young. And Sean, you've got thoughts on all of these, so we'll try to work this in the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mostly have thoughts on NL Rookie of the Year. At least my strongest opinion. I think Jackson Merrill did enough in the past week to put himself in favorite position. He's at 3.5 wins above replacement. He's projected to finish between 4.2 and 4.6. Skeens is at 2.6. Again, Merrill at 3.5. Skeens projected to finish between 3.2 and 4.1. So Skeens' ceiling is Merrill's floor in terms of wins above replacement. Skeens is already at 119 innings pitched this season. He threw 150 last year between LSU and the minor leagues, 119 between AAA and the majors this season. He's projected to finish between 34 and 51 the rest of the way. 8 starts. It's August 11th. He's already at 130 innings. Do you think he gets 8 starts? I think he gets 5 starts. I think he gets 6 starts. So that 34 to 51 range, that projected 3.2 to 4.1 end of season WAR, I think he's towards the lower end of that projection when it's all said and done. Are we really going to give a guy a Rookie of the Year award who threw 130 innings when you have a player in Jackson Merrill who's been playing the field all year, hitting close to 300, pacing for 22 homers, 17 steals, 80 runs, 80 ribbies? Are we giving guys awards for the most efficient half season, for the most efficient 4 months, or are we giving the Rookie of the Year award to the guy who had the best season, the best full season, with the best stats and the most counting stats, the highest wins above replacement? Skeens has been great. Do not get me wrong. He's been the most efficient rookie in the time that he's been up, but he wasn't up the whole year, and he's probably not going to pitch to the end of the year. I don't know. I'd flip the odds. I really if I knew nothing else, right? If I was a space alien dropped in right now and you said, here's the stats, here's the history of the award, Jackson Merrill's ahead. He's projected to finish well ahead. In fact, the lead is expected to grow by the end of the year. What do you think the odds should be? I'd say Jackson Merrill should be 90%, minus 900. And then somebody tells me, well, Paul Skeens is minus 900. And I'd say, are you sure you didn't get that backwards? Realistically, this should be even. This is a coin flip right now because the narrative is not flipped back towards Merrill yet. And Paul Skeens, by the way, has been declining with each start. His stuff plus is going down. The velocity is going down. He just gave up 4 runs to the Dodgers. I know he walked 1, struck out 8. He's still going to get strikeouts, but but he's getting hit a little bit harder, and he's giving up runs in every start now. And the Pirates are also 5 games under 500. They have no incentive anymore to pitch him beyond the first week of September. There was a point in time where, yeah, the Pirates were in the race. Now they're not. It's done. So I don't know. Like, aside from the narrative, aside from hearing about Skeens every day and every start, look at the seasons that they're having. In 7 weeks, 8 weeks, when the voters sit down and compare these guys and Skeens hasn't pitched in 3 weeks, and you see the difference in the end of season war, I mean, I think there could be a win and a half between these guys at the end of the year. So yeah, that's my hot take. I think I missed the best window to bet on Jackson Merrill last week because I was already talking about the fact that Skeens was going to get shut down. But also Merrill had this massive hot streak where he kept hitting game-winning home runs or game-tying home runs on the road. And by the way, this guy's like born to get big hits in the postseason. I had like this random thought last week when we were talking about the Padres that he's going to be the NLCS MVP. I just don't know why. I have this feeling he's going to get massive hits in the postseason. But then all of a sudden he started getting big hits against bad teams, to flip games for the Padres. And you say what you will against the Pirates and the Marlins, it's still good DNA for the Padres because they weren't doing it to bad teams last year. They were folding over and dying against the Pirates last year.
Yeah.
So different Padres team
with Juan Soto.
Today was terrible. Cease was terrible. We can get to NL Cy Young in a second. But yeah, I really think like if you look at this objectively and you ignore the hype and you just ignore like all the talking points you've heard about Skeens to date, like just look at what's on paper and then think about the fact that he's definitely getting shut down in a month. And what does the conversation look like as the Padres are pushing towards the playoffs for the final 3 weeks of Merrill playing every day? And Skeens is sitting on the bench and he hasn't been talked about in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Sportsbooks are starting to move the odds. I mean, it's I see as low as 4-1 on Merrill, and it was like
I think I'd take it. What should he not be even money right now?
I agree. I think that the biggest thing, and we've talked about this, is that Skeens is like as good as he was and as dominant as he was when he came up. Like there are cracks. Like there, if you look at the number of 100-mile-an-hour pitches that he's thrown from the first couple starts that he made, then the next handful of starts, and then the last few, there's not that many. I think he only threw 3 against the Dodgers, and he got hit relatively hard. And like even that, if you watch that first inning where Freddie Freeman had a really hard line out, that if that landed, then all of a sudden it would have been, maybe 2 or 3 more runs coming across for the Dodgers. I think there's
I haven't checked the average velocity yet. And I just did. Yeah, the Dodgers start was his lowest average velocity of the season. And this is what I'd been tracking and why I said the Stuff Plus metrics are going down. First start of the year, 100.1. A little bit extra juice, sure, major league debut. 99.3, 98.8, 99.2, 95.5. Okay, you go all the way. So his first 10 starts averaging over 99 miles an hour. June 29th, he dipped to 98, went back up to 99, then 98.2, 98.7, 98.5. 98, 97.7 last 2 starts. So he's down 2.5 miles an hour compared to his major league debut. He's down 2 miles an hour compared to his first 10 major league starts. I think the Pirates obviously see that.
Right.
They're going to shut him down.
For what it's worth,
they're out of the race.
If you look at his next few starts too, Texas,
I was just going to go there. Yeah.
Texas, a rising offense. Cubs, they're fine against right-handed pitching, and Cleveland. And then you even go a step further and you're like, all right, well, what do you got in the first week of September, which is right when you're saying he's going to be shut down? Washington. And Washington, they're not they put the ball in play. They can be pesky. They can be annoying. I don't know if that's probably his easiest start the rest of the season. And then after that, it's Kansas City. And then he's probably shut down. So, right. I mean, he has Texas, Chicago, Cleveland are 3 difficult starts.
Is that
coming
Casey start on the road?
He has...
No, it's home.
Yeah, it's Texas. It's Texas in Texas, Chicago.
Well, Seattle first, then Texas.
So
yes. Sorry, I skipped over Seattle.
Right.
Teams at Kansas City versus home versus Kansas City is the difference of 15 strikeouts. So.
But just stop at Cubs. Seattle, Texas, Chicago,
and then Cleveland. I misread that he's playing Seattle before he played Texas. Yeah.
It's regardless of opponents, regardless of
wish he was facing the Padres in the series.
Was over
Jackson Merrill lights him up. Oh,
if the season ended today, I think Jackson Merrill should win the award. but he's going to play 3 extra weeks the rest of the way.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that for me.
Okay. Good stuff. AL Rookie of the Year. Thoughts?
Yeah, Colton Cowser is the deserving favorite because he's going to finish with an extra 125 plate appearances relative to Tyler Wells. I think Tyler Wells should be second. I think Tyler Wells is probably the value guy, but most of his value is tied up in catcher defense, which does not get recognized nearly as much as the counting stats that Cowser is putting up. And I think Wells should continue to put up good RBI numbers, hitting fourth behind Judge and Soto the rest of the way. I just think Cowser has been getting leadoff at bats for the Orioles, and it's probably going to be tough to overcome him. But if you're looking for a value play, it's one of the Yankees, but I think it's Wells, not Luis Gil.
Is Heel not pitching tomorrow, or is he pitching tomorrow? Because
he's pitching tomorrow. Heel's at currently at 2.3 WAR. Wells is at 2.7. Wells is projected to finish between 3.2 and 3.7. Heel projected between 2.8 and 3.
Because ESPN has Heel not tomorrow, and then I'm looking, and I'm well, because he has White Sox and then Detroit, so he has 2 easy starts, and Colorado at Yankee Stadium. So those are 3 starts that Heel could easily use to push through. I don't know. My mind goes to Heel, but I don't have anything on this.
He's been electric, and I don't think the AL field has been nearly as competitive as you had Shota favoring the NL earlier in the year. You had Jared Jones as the favorite at one point in the NL. The NL Rookie of the Year race has been electric all year. Wyatt Langford, massive disappointment. Jackson Holiday was a massive disappointment. Now he's hitting well, where I'm can Jackson Holiday win this in the final 6 weeks of the season? I don't know. If Jackson Holiday keeps popping homers, it's not out of the question, but he has a lot of work to do. But yeah, that, if I was going to throw out one crazy long shot, you could put 5/100th of a unit on Jackson Holiday right now. Sure, go for it.
And I'm sure folks are noticing we're not spending time on AL MVP and NL MVP. Those feel pretty solid.
The Ketel Marte injury killed me, dude. I thought there was a chance that Ketel Marte was going to catch Shohei, and then he got hurt. And I still to this, if he didn't go down with an injury this weekend, I think that he catches Shohei. I think it's not a minus 1,400 close.
And the same with the American League American League Cy Young with Tarek Skubal, but the National League Cy Young. Well, this is fascinating. Chris Sale pitches tomorrow. Faces the Giants. You guys were talking about the Giants, a team that you could find sneaky if they were to sneak in. Sneaky if they sneak in. No kidding. They got Blake Snell. That's the pitching matchup. Not to confuse people, but the current favorite is Chris Sale at even money. Zach Wheeler, Paul Skeens, Hunter Green, and Dylan Cease at 29-1. Then Tyler Glasnow is next at 49-1.
Yeah, so I don't think Paul Skeens should be the favorite currently for NL Rookie of the Year. You could go ahead and turn all of his Cy Young tickets into donations. I think the sportsbooks have gladly been accepting Cy Young bets on Paul Skeens at anything below 10-1 for quite some time now.
I wonder what's worse, Paul Skeens for NL Cy Young or Bronny James and winning the Rookie of the Year.
At least Paul Skeens can effectively pitch at the major league. Paul Skeens is the best pitcher in baseball, I think, in terms of how I model him. Yeah. Maybe not at this point.
Thinking more so
he's down to 97, but there was a point in time where he was my number 1 pitcher.
I was thinking more so from a donation standpoint. But yeah, that's true.
All
right, but you like Dylan Cease right now. Why?
Well, Cease got hit today. So I tried to bet Cease today. Obviously, the Marlins tagged him, but he does currently lead the major league in strikeouts. He's projected to finish ahead of Zach Wheeler in end-of-season wins above replacement. He's projected second behind Chris Sale. Sale at 4.4 currently, projected between 5.3 and 5.6. Wheeler projected between 4.7 and 4.8. So Sale has a pretty sizable lead over everybody else. However, the Braves keep pushing Sale back. And it's really weird because they're currently out of wildcard position, hanging on to wildcard position, fighting for third place, fighting for their lives for wildcard position because the Diamondbacks and the Padres have pulled ahead. And now it seems like the Mets and the Braves and the Cardinals and maybe the Giants, who we could talk about in a moment, fighting for one playoff spot, unless the Padres or Diamondbacks fall off. And yet the Braves are we're going to keep Chris Sale on 6 days rest, even though we had an off day and we could start him on 5 days rest. Really weird stuff. So I don't know if they're just hoping they can get to October and hoping they didn't put too much of a workload on him, or if he's quietly dealing with something and they're not talking about it and just pushing him back a day here and there. They've had other injuries too with their rotation. Max Fried has been in and out. He came back recently. Morton has not pitched well. So they need all the innings they can get from Chris Sale, but they're choosing sometimes to throw out number 6 starters, replacement level starters in his stead. They threw up Bryce Elder, I believe, in a game in Colorado, which is a disaster. So I'm a little worried about Chris Sale making it to the end of the year, making it over the final 6 weeks. I think he should be the favorite. I think he has a lead right now. And again, that lead could even grow by the end of the year if he keeps pitching. But he's an injury risk. He's surpassed his... I mean, he's thrown more innings this year than he's thrown in the past 4 years combined, I believe, or he's getting close to it. Where do you go beyond that? Well, Zach Wheeler hasn't been quite as good this year. As I said, Cease seemed like he was in a really good position today, which is why I bet him at 25-1, but he got lit up. I still think he could recover and work his way back into it. Skeens I'm out on. Hunter Green plays in a horrible park. Like, do you really want to take Hunter Green when one bad start in Cincinnati could probably end him? So I think I'd pass. Like, I hate to say it, but I think I'd pass at this point on an Cy Young. I think all of these guys carry considerable risk. I don't think there's value on sale at even money. I guess Green would be the best value of the bunch. But honestly, I think I would just take a price. Like, if Cease floats up to 40-1 tomorrow after he got hit today, I think I might take more, or I would take Cease, at that point. But other than that, I'm really not super interested in any of these guys. I think Sale's the deserving favorite. I'm just worried he gets hurt.
It's fascinating, right? Because they need the games, and right now they would be the Giants first, then the Angels. And I think even if they pushed him another day, he could still get the Angels before the Braves host the Phillies, which that becomes a really important series in a couple.
And the
weeks.
Giants at lefties, Giants Braves. It's not a bad matchup for the Giants, so they could hit Sale conceivably.
I know we could play the schedule game with everybody, but Twins and Phillies on the road in September for the end of August, early September for the Braves. Dodgers for a 4-gamer. They wrap the year with Kansas City, but it's Kansas City on the road, or Kansas City going to Atlanta. So.
Team is so lifeless too. Like, there's something just wrong with them.
Yeah.
Speaking of lifeless, the Mets, but yeah,
it's all right. Yeah,
Mets Braves both look terrible. Yeah,
that's why I think like I mean, obviously, I think personally, dart throws on Green and Cease are what you should do if you want to play this market. But going to the lifeless of the Mets and the Braves, like we were talking right before the show, I don't think you're crazy if you want to put some pizza money down on the San Francisco Giants to win the World Series, make the playoffs, win the NL, any of those futures. If you look at where it is right now, and the Mets are about to lose. The Braves just lost the series to Colorado. The wild card, and even St. Louis is playing not well. The Giants are just going to be 1.5 games behind the Braves, about to start a series with the Braves. And they have the top 10 schedule in terms of difficulty the rest of the way. So you have to bank on them being able to beat good teams to get to the playoffs. But if they get to the playoffs, they are one of the deadly teams that we can face, as deadly as you can face, with between Webb, Snell, Hicks. You have Roger
Ray.
Yeah, Robbie Ray.
Yeah, they have 3 former Cy Youngs on their rotation they can throw at you. Good luck with that.
A team that can hit lefties well, a team that's figuring things out. Conforto's playing better at the plate. Chapman's been great. If they get right and they make the playoffs, they're a team you don't want to face in a tight series. So I probably will end up dabbling in some Giants futures, because if you watch the Mets and you watch the Braves right now, I mean, those two teams, they're just lifeless. I don't really know what's going on with the two. I think it's worth having fun and taking a long shot stab on a team like the Giants, who, if they make the playoffs, like I would probably go more toward like the home run swing of doing World Series and National League if you wanted to, than making the playoffs, because they have a difficult schedule. But if they get there, they're a viable team as any to make a run.
Yeah, they're really scared. I mean, that just rolling over Webb, Snell, and Ray again and again. And then, by the way, you have one of the best bullpens, and you could throw a 4th-day bullpen game with Kyle Harrison at the front of it. However you want to pitch it, they have elite pitching every single day. They will play a playoff game. So offense, who knows what they'll get out of it. But yeah, it's stupid elite pitching, and that makes every game close in an environment where games are typically close. So Giants would not be any team I would want any piece of in October.
That's fascinating. And again, I'm doing the schedule thing, but they play several series with the Diamondbacks and the Padres. Yeah. So that's just going to hold those teams all beat up on each other, same division. What does that mean, right? What does that mean for the?
Or they all get in. I mean, the West, the West is really good, and the Pods and the D-backs are on heck of runs right now, and the Giants are kind of going under the radar, but they were below 500, and it seemed like they were out around the deadline, and suddenly they're in the mix, and they're kind of dead even with Atlanta. So huge series for them the next few days, because if they can gain ground on Atlanta at all, it makes things very interesting over the final 6 weeks.
All righty, there you go. There's your latest awards futures update as we come down the stretch here. 6 weeks to go.
Webb, Snell, and Ray is so funny in a 5-game series. Like, I need to see it. I need to see it.
I forgot they had Robbie Ray, to be honest.
Yeah, he's pitching well too.
Yeah. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app. Leave us your 5-star ratings and reviews wherever you listen. Check out the Action Network Discord channel as well. As football season nears, there is a link to the Discord channel in the episode description of this podcast. We'll be back tomorrow to preview Tuesday's slate for Sean Zerillo, Charlie DiSturco, Brendan Glasheen. Thanks for tuning in to Payoff Pitch. We are Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM.